In today's office hours session, we had a discussion about links. We talked about the different kinds of links and how to insert them into your content using your Wysiwyg toolbar. So let's just jump right in and we can hopefully go over the same kinds of things that were asked in the office hours. So let's just start off with email and phone links. These kinds of links are going to bring up some kind of program that responds appropriately. So, some kind of phone call making program and the email message program that they have associated with their browser. So, the phone number links obviously will work a lot better with mobile, but definitely still will work with any other kind of online device. Um, the email links, when you're working with the MyLO system and in Wysiwyg, specifically when you're saving this in Wysiwyg, the email links, when you type them out just like that, upon saving them will automatically turn into email links. So I don't have to make anything else happen there. I don't have to insert a link actually. MyLO does it for me. So let's show off how to insert an email link using just regular text, other words as the link title or the link name. The item that becomes the link, that's what it's called, the link title or the link name. So we have a couple of linking tools, the insert edit link tool or the link to content tool. Both of these are giving you the same options. The link to content tool does give you a little bit more, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's use the link it tool. Link it or link to content. Those words are often used interchangeably in MyLO. But we need to start out with mail to. That is going to give the browser the heads up that this is an email message, and specifically an email message to whoever that recipient is that you will specify. From there, we don't have to specify the target. This tells us which browser window it should open in. The title is optional. You can give that a title if you don't have very much context around that link. This just gives it a little bit more instruction in what they should be doing. And click Insert Link. Whether you used this tool, it's the same idea. You're also adding the link URL. You have the same options of target or title, and you'll insert the link. If you need to update a link for any reason, you can use either one of these. Opening that back up, make your change, and let's just turn that into another address. And it's not apparent to you until either you come back in to edit the link, and sorry, that tool doesn't come up unless you highlight the link when it comes to the Insert Edit Link tool. But you can see that you've made the change here, or if you clicked on the link, it would bring up the different recipient. But let's add the old recipient back and update. Let's go ahead and test that out so we can see the different email links. So I've saved that, and the only change I made was adding the MyLO team members, or adding a link to that phrase. If I click on either one of these, I get the same response because what we've done to that phrase, MyLO team members, is the same. We've mimicked what the system does to any email address that you type out into a Wysiwyg text box. So that is the email links. Let's go back and show off the phone number links. When you are talking about most modern mobile browsers, they are going to just create phone links automatically. That's going to happen if you have the area code. I'm not entirely sure if the phone number will automatically be linked if it's just the 7-digit phone number, but to guarantee that phone numbers will be linked whether they have the area code or not, it is best to highlight or to link them yourself. So start out with highlighting the text, or if it was going to be an image, but highlight that text that is going to become the link. And before we move on to the linking tool, I'm going to just copy this for ease of my own use. Using either one of these tools will bring up our link URL, where this time we're using TEL, like telephone, TEL:, and that gets us started with a telephone link. We always have to include the country code, but before that country code comes the plus sign. So +1 is our country code for North America. And then it's recommended to include dashes between the natural pauses of the phone number. So adding those just so that it is easier to read, and make sure you have your area code. If any one of these pieces is missing, the phone number will not be able to connect. If the country code were missing, it will most likely still work for local phone numbers, but you don't want to rely on that in case you're getting any international phone calls or users that are outside of their home network. Let's go ahead and insert that. So by adding the country code, you're guaranteeing that everybody can make their call successfully. You can, just like the email link that we added, you can add a phone number link to text or to an image. It's just a matter of highlighting that text or image, and we add the same ingredients. The telephone code +1, and then your dashes and your number. Once we insert that, get the tell that this is a link because it is red and underlined, but then also these boxes up here get highlighted, and they are telling us that there's an active link. The images are another place that these boxes, when they highlight, will be helpful to know that there's a link there. Otherwise, you won't be able to tell visually that an image is linked. This time for the image linking, we're going to use the link to content tool. And we're going to use the part of the tool that allows us to search through your content. So click on the link to content tool to bring up this link it window. We're going to go past this top portion. We're going to go down here to find content. I'm going to zoom out just a bit more so that we can see all the way down to the bottom here. So as you can already see, there's a couple of pages. They're all from my demo site. I'm logged in as this webmaster, and I get to see just the content from my very own league site. And I can search either by the title, I can search by the content type. Any one of those that I specify, I have to hit apply to make that narrowing down of the list. When it comes to this search, you can either go with that or go through page by page. It's in alphabetical order, and if you aren't able to see the pager, just zoom in or out with your keyboard. Control Z minus or plus for Windows users, and then Function Z plus or minus for Mac users. Once you find the page or content item that you wanted to connect to, just click on it. And once you do that, the node ID gets dropped in. No matter what the content type is, as long as you click on it, these items are published, and so that means you're able to link to it. The node ID is a nickname of the page URL. The page URL is the address of whatever this content item is. So if we take this sample web form, the page title creates part of the page URL. So instead of seeing something that would end with sample-webform, the node ID redirects to that longer URL that ends with sample-webform. It's a way for the MyLO system to easily move these links around. And once you insert that, this is where the highlighted icons really do help to let us know that the image is linked. So just again to show how the URL or the node ID is going to work, I'm going to copy the link address that is associated with this image to my clipboard so that we can see it on a larger plane here. So this is the node that it is leading to. We had only added, or the system added, just this portion here, actually the slash. And what gets filled in by the system is what we saw attached to the beginning of this. So that once this travels as a user, once you travel to this page, we get a redirect to the actual sample web form, the actual page or the content that it is. So let's jump back in here. We can show that off just like we saw it happen traveling to that page. I'll go ahead and save this. And when we hover over the image, we have the node ID still there. Copy that again so that we can show that off. It is still showing up as a node ID, but once we click on that, within the same page or within the same window, we're taken to the sample web form. And just like that, let me bring the URL a little bit closer. And there you go. If you've noticed I'm working in the demo site and the sample basics site, content items are listed for me in my Link It tool. That is because the webmaster that I am logged in as belongs to multiple leagues. So if you only are a webmaster for one league, you'll see your very own league's content. And so let's just jump back into this page. We've gone over the links to internal items. These are relative to your very own site. We've talked about phone number links and email links, whether you add links to any kind of text or if you're adding them to an image. Those are all possible. Now let's go ahead and jump back into Edit the Draft, because this time we'll talk about the external sites that you will be linking to. So jumping back down, let's just add a couple more links here. This time I'm just going to name them the web page name, or the web address. That is if all else fails, that is a good link title to use. So when you want to give a directive, that is probably the best way to have a link, so that you're giving some kind of instruction. Please do this kind of thing. Or, with phone numbers and emails, it's completely acceptable to just leave them as is when we're talking about the link text, or I'm sorry, the link title. Leave those, as natural as they are, or making it the person's name or title, and making sure that they know it is to email or to call if you're not going to display the email or phone number itself. But having some kind of context added to the link title is very helpful. If you cannot get away with adding some helpful word or phrase or something that will add that context, just using the website's name is perfect. You can even just use an organization's name. Going with the league that is on MyLO is definitely not external, but it is another just good example of a link title. And let's go with, there we go, Facebook. I could go with facebook.com, but because it's super recognizable as just the organization name, the shorter the better. So let's go through, and instead of that, let's just work with the ones that have an actual address that I can recognize. So vote411.org, I am just going to use either one of these tools. Let's go with this one here. And again, the tools are just purely preference, which one you prefer. For external sites, you do have to have the beginning portion, which is known as the protocol. The HTTP, let me zoom in. This portion is known as the protocol, and it can either be HTTP : / or HTTPS : / If you don't know which one it is, just default to the one without the S, and then type in their address. The www is usually not required because most domains these addresses will work just by themselves. But if you run into issues with a link not working properly, you may try adding the www dot in between the protocol and the URL. The links that are external to MyLO, they're going to open by default in a new window. That's what the target is. But you have the ability to choose the same window. You don't have to worry about parent window or top window with this link it or link to content tool. You can add a title. So if you want to let people know more information, that can give you additional context without having to add it to live on the page. This will come up when we hover over that link. And go ahead and insert. So we added that. We see the little tool tip that comes up when I hover over that. And now let's just go on to, this is going to be an example actually of an internal page that's somewhere on MyLO. For this kind of example, again, you can use any type of link it tool or linking tool. But for this example, you don't need to begin with the HTTP portion. We're going to go further past the past that portion. So just to show what Georgia's full URL is, https://my.lwv.org/Georgia. What we are going to do, because this is a relative link, it is the MyLO system already knows its own address. So we don't have to specify that again. We can just start off with the slash. Adding the slash is notifying the system that this is going to begin with my.lwv.org. So whatever you add in the link URL field will come right after that. Because this is a relative link, it is internal to the MyLO site, the entire MyLO site. The target is going to open in the same window. So for these kinds, if it's from one league to another completely different league, you might think about opening it in a new window. We also had a discussion in the office hours of somebody having a preference of making everything open in a new window. And that's not a terrible idea. If you do have some items opening in the same window where they are just relating to your own site's items, that makes total sense. And it is a preference of whether having it open in a new window or the same window. For this purpose, being that it is going from one MyLO site to a different outside of my home state, I just prefer a new window to cut down on any confusion. And insert link. So one more time, let's show an example of not just a MyLO homepage of a league site's homepage on MyLO. We're going to show, and again, I'm personally preferring this link to content tool right now, but choose either one. This time, again, we need to start off with the slash. We're going to use an internal page. So let's go with, I have our Dearborn Heights League here already in my history. And we can continue adding. I'm not entirely sure of the pages that are in their site, but I would imagine there might be an about as a main page. But you definitely want to know the path that you're working with. And the path is everything after that first slash. So again, what the system is filling in for us is this portion here. And so everything with the slash included and after that is the path. So we remove that again. Again, this is a league outside of my own. I might go with a new window, but I'm just going to leave it blank being a demonstration. But that's another example of an internal link that is in MyLO, but is not your own site. Let's go ahead and show another example. We went over with the image link how to use, and let's show it off again, the link it tool, which is the same as the link to content. So we added that node ID because we choose from the find content here. Another way that you can add these links that are going back to your own site, let's use this text instead, and either one of those tools will work for this. The link URL will be just the page title. So it could be capitalized. The capitalization won't matter here. But let's take a look at, actually I need to jump over to the demo site. But looking at your menu is probably the easiest way to know which pages, or I'm sorry, paths you need to specify. So let's use the calendar as an example. Let's use this notepad. So just like we went over, the MyLO system will assume this portion, everything before that first slash. There's another assumption that the system will make for you that will include your entire URL. So it be your full URL for your league site. Just by typing in the word of the page or the last portion of the path, that is what's going to lead to that page. So let's make a link to our calendar and also our studies here. So our calendar, jumping back over here, because the full URL, and let's see, did I copy that? Yeah. So that full URL is what we want to lead to. But what I can do is leave all of this portion out. And if I just type in the word without the slash, then here the system is assuming that portion that I removed. So it's assuming all of that and tacking on calendar to the end of that. So let's insert that and just check that out. Once you save, you're going to be able to see the result of the link to the page within your site. So I have this internal page to my own site. It by default is opening in the same tab, and it landed to my calendar page. And it is the same site there. So perfect. And let's test out those links to internal pages that are within MyLO but not on my own site. And these, okay, so I did get it a little bit wrong. I led us to the about. I missed the word league, so that's why we're just at the League of Women Voters Dearborn Heights homepage. But that's okay. Now I would know what to edit there. But I was able to add that link to this page without having to specify the beginning portion of my.lwv.org. And I was able to leave out the HTTPS as well. And then here, the vote411.org, we did have to specify HTTP. If it is HTTPS, make that happen, add that. Otherwise, HTTP works. And we are loading this page properly. That is leading properly to that destination. And then that last internal page somewhere else on MyLO. By default, these kinds of links open in the same window, but this was the target that we updated. And so that's why we're seeing that in a new window. So let's close those up. And we'll leave that studies page alone for another time. Let's go ahead back in and finish up the links that we have listed, and then we'll talk about anchor links. Okay, so jumping back in to edit this draft, I have the link to lwv.org listed here, just to mention the default behavior of these kinds of links. We are a subdomain of lwv.org, just by nature, because we are at my.lwv.org. So any links that you create to lwv.org are going to open in the same window if you don't change the target. That's just by default. We still do need to include the HTTP portion, though. That is one difference when it comes to they behave, lwv.org links behave kind of like an external link and kind of like an internal link. So you do need the protocol, and if you don't want them to open in the same window, you do need to specify a new window. But let's insert that, and we can test that out in a second. And then just one more example of the Facebook or the external links with the Facebook. And that's all we need there. You can keep adding if you're adding a specific page, but as long as you have that HTTPS or P portion and you're continuing on with the main part of the URL, and then you can keep going. Insert that. So before we continue on to show those off, let's go ahead and add some anchor links. So I'm going to add in some terms just to make it a little easier to work with. The anchor is going to be the destination. Just like in this link, the destination is MyLO at lwvc.org. Email to be sent. The destination here is the phone number or the phone call to be made. And then the rest of these are specific addresses online. So this time the destination is going to be within the page that we're working with. So use the anchor tool. It's the Insert Edit Anchor tool, and specify an anchor name. This can be a number, it can be just letters. It cannot include spaces, so either run everything together, use dashes or underscores. Go ahead and type out whatever you'd like. Capitalization can be used, but it does need to, you do need to copy that. So either copy it with your cursor or remember it exactly as it is and insert. The reason you need to remember it exactly as it is because we're going to add a link to that anchor. So let's just use this section here. This is just personal preference. If I ever move formatted text or a formatted item from a line that I want to work with, using the remove formatting, that little eraser icon makes me feel better. So I'm going to show that again. I entered a new line, and to make sure that there isn't any formatting left behind, I give it a quick erase. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the link to anchor. This time we have the destination because we just created it with the anchor. So highlight the phrase that is going to serve as the link and insert edit link or link to content. Either one will work. To create the anchor link, the link that will lead to the anchor, start out with the pound sign or hashtag, whatever you call that, and then paste in your anchor name. If for any reason there is a mismatch between the link URL and the anchor, you may not lead properly. That link won't lead properly to the destination. So just make sure that those match and insert. The longer the page, the easier it is to see this. So I'm just going to add some spaces in between some of these so we can really see this link jump us down to the anchor. So let's go ahead and save. The idea of the anchor is to create that line as the new top of the page. So clicking on that makes us jump down to that. If I had text below the anchor, then this line would be at the very top. But it being at the bottom, it is the link is trying to get us as close as possible to that anchor. With the link to lwv.org or any page within that site, when I click on that, I'm taken within the same tab to their site. So definitely use the target window or the target setting to update that if you prefer to open that in a new window. And then Facebook, just the same as Vote 411, we have the same idea there. Adding the protocol, the HTTP or the HTTPS, and specifying the domain, whatever the .org or .com address is. One last thing that we did go over in the office hours was the fact that you can update your summary to include formatted text like bolded items, linked text, or you can make sure that you have the image showing up properly in your summary. What happens by default here in the summary, if that field is left blank, the system is going to automatically take the first few lines of the body. So let's actually jump in so we can see this from the back end and see what the summary versus the body field looks like. So go ahead and start a new draft or edit the existing draft of the content item. From there, we want to scroll down to the body. If you aren't already making use of the summary, it's going to just be a small link that says Edit Summary. By clicking that, you are opening up the summary field. It is obvious there that in the summary field, we don't have the Wysiwyg toolbar. So that tells us this is going to be a plain text field. If you do want to see changes to the formatting, you will need to use HTML tags. You can make use of some pretty standard HTML tags if you have that knowledge. And I will link to a pretty good basic intro to HTML tags. But what you can also do is use the built-in pieces of your site to help you translate from Wysiwyg to HTML. But let's go ahead and go through that. So before I continue, I want to open up the home page so that we can keep kind of jumping back and forth between these. So at the moment, this league article does not have a predefined summary where I have come in and specified what it should be. So by default, when that is left blank, the system is going to use part of the full text, which is the body. I can see, rather than it being the visual version where we see the image and the formatted items, when I click on Disable Rich Text, I get to see the HTML side. And this gives me an idea of the information that is getting pulled. Rather than seeing the entire image, which is actually from here to here, the system is usually pulling about 3 lines. It is dependent on the number of characters. So it's somewhere around 3 lines of this side, of the HTML side. So if the image HTML is long, and it usually is, the effect ends up being a broken image on within the summary. So we can prevent that. Let me go ahead and jump back here. There's one of 2 ways that you can do this. We've already clicked Disable Rich Text. We're still looking at the HTML side. So if you want to include just the image, you would go from brackets to brackets. And then going further than that, you would have to recognize the pauses in your text if you wanted to include more than that. Usually the natural stops are going to be the /Ps. Anything that starts with H2 or H3, H4, those are heading styles. All of these basic HTML tags will be included in the resource that I'll have linked in our Office Hours wrap-up. But let's say this is a little bit too much. The body is going to contain most likely all that is on your page. So if you only wanted to display the image and that the first few lines, then what I would suggest, rather than using the body and using Disable Rich Text, what we can do is highlight and copy the portion you'd like to see in the summary. And we're going to use one of these boxes. We're just going to use this temporarily just to convert our Wysiwyg version to an HTML version. So add additional formatted text. If you add a third-party embed code box, it's fine. You just have to change the setting of this box from full HTML to Wysiwyg. If you added an additional formatted text box, it would be set to Wysiwyg already. So using either one of those, now you can paste in either with your keyboard or by right-clicking. Be sure not to paste as plain text. Paste that in because the MyLO system should recognize it as being copied from a MyLO location. So now we have this set to Wysiwyg, and we can make additional changes to whatever we want. We can add more images, we could add formatting changes to the text, but this is the reason for wanting to make sure it's in Wysiwyg, aside from the initial paste in of these items. It also allows us to add links as we need. So I will add a link back to our homepage there and insert. And let's go ahead and edit some of this text to format it a bit. Okay, so as much as you add, that will all be translated once we disable rich text. Either clicking disable rich text or swapping over to full HTML does the same thing to produce the HTML tags instead of the visual formatting that we would see. So what we want to do is either cut or copy. We're going to remove this one because it's just going to add an extra line of space if we leave that there. So once that loads up, I can confirm the deletion, or I'll just go ahead and save my changes down at the bottom. So with the HTML version of this copied with the additional formatting changes I made, I'm coming over to summary, and this time it does not matter if I paste regularly or paste as plain text because it is the HTML version. What pasting as plain text means is that it will usually remove any formatting. So if you've copied, rather than the HTML version, but you've copied something from Word that has different formatting changes, you would want to paste as plain text into the MyLO body when going from Word to MyLO. But in this case, when we have the HTML tags there, it won't make a difference. So now we used the Wysiwyg editor to create this HTML version of what we'd like to see. So let's go ahead and save our changes. When it comes to making changes to the summary, it does need to be published in order to see that right away. I'll go ahead and save it as a draft to show off that hasn't been changed yet. Let's just jump back to quickly publish that. I can either view the draft, or on the moderate tab, I'll have this same button to apply the publishing. All right, let's jump back to the home page. And now there you go. So we've copied all of the formatting and the image properly so that we're no longer seeing anything broken. And we are getting the link as we expected.